So this is what represents a drop away style rest. The way this one works is that this cable here is built into the rest itself, and this goes tethered into one of your bowstring cables. And as you pull the bow back, it draws tension and it cocks it like so. And when you release the shot and it goes back the other way, it drops out of the way entirely.
Hey guys, so I made it to John Gulledge's shop here, Aero Addictions in Shoal Harbour. As you just saw there, I just pulled into Shoal Harbour, and I'm here to pick up my bow today. He did some tuning on it, replaced the strings and cables, and now when we finish up the little talk that he wants to give here, we're going to put the peep sight in. The reason I dropped off my bow is because I'm guilty of probably something that a lot of bow hunters are guilty of, and that's poor maintenance. I've been shooting the same bow for 10 years, and I should be ashamed to say it. I am ashamed to say it. I've done no maintenance on that bow in 10 years.
And the strings reflect it.
The string showed it. Like, I wax my strings and stuff. That's about as much as I do, and I knew I was getting to the point where the strings needed replaced, and when I brought it in, he wouldn't even shoot it. So, and I'm by far inexperienced bow hunter, so I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are a lot worse off than I am. So with bear season well underway and moose season approaching in less than 90 days, believe it or not, John's got a few tips and pointers and some advice, I think, do you, for people looking to maintain their bows or to maybe even get into it for the first time?
Yeah, absolutely, and it's something that I have a lot of passion for. You know, I've learned the hard way, and I've seen people learn the hard way that this is stuff that takes time. So we'll pick one thing at a time. I guess the string maintenance, that's the thing you want to get early on. Like, I do recommend, like, you know, after the hunting seasons have mostly closed, if your strings are due for replacement stuff, that's when you want to do that that kind of work, like in the winter months and stuff, where there might be some indoor leagues, but for the most part, you're not worried about like a hunt that's right around the corner kind of thing. Because even with a brand new set of strings, when I build when I build strings in house, my strings are built and stretched under 300 pounds of tension, so they're pre-stretched and they're all like way over engineered in terms of strength and durability in that sense. But even with a string that is pre-stretched like that, there is always a risk that your peep could rotate or something when you're breaking in the new strings, because nothing breaks in a string better than just straight up shooting it.
That's actually something that I'm going to mention too, is I'm shooting an Elite bow, and I was actually getting ready to order strings from Elite themselves and just get John to install them. I could have done it, I guess. I've got a portable press, but I was looking at ordering the strings, and I knew he's been here. I've been here a couple of times. I didn't realize that he actually makes his own strings in house. So he can pretty well custom fit any bow if you need a string replaced, and you don't really need to. You can do pretty much any bow.
Yep. Oh yeah, any bow, and we've got a long list of models we currently have done on our website that you can avail from. You can order a complete set through the website aeroaddiction.ca, but we're always here to assist you if you can't locate the exact strings that you need, or you can just bring your bow in and we'll happily look it over and tell you. And sometimes you don't need strings. Some people think their strings are due to be replaced a little earlier than they actually are. Like, you know, a lot of string material now is a lot different than it was 10 years ago, so it holds up a lot better.
Yeah.
But basically, you want to get that stuff done early. The reason I'm saying that is because, like, if you might need to get those strings worked in so you can get your peep sight rotation worked out early and not like a couple days leading up to the hunt.
Perfect. So he just mentioned his website there. I'll put the link up in this corner. I don't know, maybe this corner. I get it confused. You'll see the link there in the video. You can click on that, and as well, I'll put his contact information and click a link in the description too that you can check out in the description down below.
Okay. And I guess the second part of that, once you get your strings on, you want to maintain regular waxing. Like, your strings should always feel a little bit tacky. Like, your fingers, you press them on and they have a little stick to them. That's when you want to do that. If they're just really dry, your fingers just pull away easily, then you need to apply wax. Wax keeps out moisture and it just extends the line, and obviously it lubricates when it's going across any contact points on the cable slide or cams or anything like that. So it'll extend the life of your strings dramatically. The old rule of thumb was every 1,000 shots or a year, whatever comes first, that's when you should change your strings. I feel like that's outdated information based on old string materials. Now modern materials last a lot longer than that, so if you're looking after your strings, you'll get a couple years out of them before you need to replace them, as long as they're looked after. So there's a couple things that I want to talk about because of what you just said then about getting ready for the hunting season. This is stuff I talk myself out of sales every summer, every August. I usually, like, I give people my honest opinion on stuff, and it causes me to lose sales, and I would rather lose sales than see animals go and be maimed. Like, you know, if people get really ambitious and they're like, oh hey, I can get in the woods 2 weeks early and the moose season is right around the corner, So I want to get bow packages set up and get ready for hunting 2 weeks from now. And I am straight up honest with people, that is overly ambitious. Anybody can pick up a bow and learn to shoot an accurate shot out to 30, maybe 40, 50 yards with in a very short time span. What takes longer is to actually get all the things done that we refer to as tuning. So I guess there's a lot of steps to tuning a bow and selecting a bow that's appropriate for you. There's a lot of things that you need to be aware of before you make a selection for a bow, and this is why I highly recommend don't go buying a bow online or through big box stores, because they're just going to put it in a box and they're going to send it to you. And that's why I don't like how some of the bows are advertised as ready to hunt packages. This simply means that they have all their accessories that you need to start hunting on them, but by no means is that bow coming out of the box ready to hunt. There is a significant amount of tuning work that needs to be done, and these are fine adjustments to make sure your arrow is flying perfectly straight. One example would be something like what's behind me here is called paper tuning. But this is a simple test. If you currently own a bow, you can run this test yourself. There's lots of great YouTube videos on how to do it. Everybody's got a different way of doing it. For me, what I do is I put a piece of paper up with enough room for the target, for the arrow to pass through to the target, where it will go clean through the paper. And what you'll see here is this is a couple bows that I've tuned recently that people had issues where they could see their arrow was flying crooked, or some of them actually thought their arrow was flying straight until I shot it through the paper and showed to them it is not. It's very hard to see what that arrow is exactly doing, and that's why you need to shoot it through paper to see it.
Is there a good hole there and a bad hole?
There is. So you can see some of these significant tears, like this is one here that someone had, and like this is, you can see a significant tear here in the paper where the shaft of the arrow went off to the left and the flights were over here. Yep. What you're looking for is something like this, where there is a good clean intersection of all three flights, and the shaft of the arrow, the bullet hole from the shaft, is right in the center of it. This is just one step of tuning. This is just the first step to get started. So what this is basically telling us is that the arrow is leaving perfectly straight off the bow at a close distance. And the reason that's significant is that if your arrow does tear the paper like this, and you might not even be able to see it with the naked eye, but it means the arrow is flying like corkscrewing through the air. And what that means is that when the arrow makes impact with the target and the arrow hits crooked, the energy is going to the side of the target instead of straight behind the point. And you want all that energy to go behind your broadhead. So by making sure your arrow flies straight, that's going to be the difference between a complete pass-through. Even if you hit some really heavy bone, you can still get a complete pass-through on both sides of a moose if your arrow is flying straight and all the energy is going behind your broadhead. This is also significant because that little bit of wobble that is being seen with your practice field point is going to be exemplified when you put a broadhead on. When the arrow leaves crooked and the broadhead is flying, is leaving the bow crooked, now that becomes the thing that steers the arrow. And then that will obviously, so if the arrow is corkscrewing with a field point through paper, when you put a broadhead on, it is really going to corkscrew it. And it's very hard to believe, but an arrow that is traveling 300 feet per second and hits an animal crooked, it will be lucky to just go in a couple inches of penetration, and then you're going to be into a very long trek. Even if you've hit the lungs and the vital area, it might not have actually gotten all the way into the lung or not into the second lung, and that's what we want to try and avoid. Arrow selection is also very important, and this is why you need to come to a pro shop or someone that's knowledgeable in the equipment that you're picking. Arrows are not just, hey, any arrow works for any bow. You need to select the correct arrow spine. Arrows are in a rating system of spine that basically values how flexible they are. And arrows basically need to be cut and spined correctly to the bow that you are shooting and the person that is shooting it. So someone that's got a 30-inch draw length will need a stiffer arrow than someone that's got a 28-inch arrow at the same draw weight. So because they're going to need a longer arrow, they need a stiffer spine arrow to match up that distance. Same thing that if you, someone that both archers have a 29-inch draw length might need a different spine arrow if one is shooting a 70-pound and someone is shooting a 50-pound. It really depends on a bunch of factors that are here in a arrow spine chart. Even then, this is just a starting point because the arrow bows are so different that one might call for a 400 spine but really needs a 340 spine. It's something that really comes down to coming to a pro shop, and making sure that we're selecting the right equipment for you. I had a customer here this morning that's exactly what we did. We measured them, set them up, tested them at his draw weight, what he could handle for the bow, and then we cut arrows that were perfectly spined for his bow, and we were able to achieve a perfect bullet hole through the paper in just a couple shots. If you don't have the correct arrows, you won't be able to achieve this type of a shot. So that's something that's really important for people to know. And then this is, like I said, just the first step to tuning. There are other steps, and guys, this is a bit overwhelming if you're first onto it, but there are lots of great YouTube videos on how to do these things. We're here to help. Like, I'm pretty booked up at some points, not gonna lie, but reach out to us. We'll be happy to book you in with a private session to help you with this type of tuning stuff if you need it. But basically, your first steps, there's a bunch of different ways. My process that I tell people, and I think works pretty good, there's a bunch of different steps you can take, but my process is to first paper tune the bow to make sure we've got an arrow that's correctly spined, and then you're going to want to do steps like walk back tuning. That's something that you can look up, but basically you're going to shoot at long ranges at a straight line and see if your arrows, as you go further, you might be sighted in perfectly at 20 yards, but as you shoot further away, the arrow drifts off to the side, left or right, and then there's some adjustment you need to make so that no matter how far away you're shooting, your arrows are shooting perfectly straight on that line and not drifting. That can come down to things like needing your sight level. There is actually a leveling system that is used for your sights. So if you've watched a walk back tuning video and see how it's done and followed the steps, and your still arrows are drifting off at different distances, there might be some axis leveling that needs to be accomplished in your bow. But I guess the big thing that you need to know is that, like, if you're going to do all these steps, because then you're going to do, so you're basically going to do paper tuning, walk back tuning, and then you're going to do broadhead tuning. This is a step that causes a lot of, like, people make this mistake all the time. Excuse me. Basically, when people, even though you've achieved this perfect bullet hole flight and you've done your walk back tuning, when you shoot your broadhead, depending on the type of broadhead you've selected, and broadhead meaning the actual razor blade hunting tip that goes on the front, depending on the type of tip you've shot, any minute little imperfections on your arrow flight are going to show itself with the broadhead, and some show it worse than others. But you might shoot at your target and your field points are hitting perfect dead center, but then you shoot your broadhead and your broadhead is high and to the right, say. And a lot of people make the mistake that they think that I'm supposed to sight in where my broadhead is hitting, and that's incorrect. What you should see is that you can put a field point or a broadhead on, and then it will impact the same point regardless. So basically, there's some videos on how to do it. We're here to help and guide you through that, but it's basically making some adjustments to your rest so that when you find that sweet spot between the two, your field points are hitting in the same spot and your broadheads are hitting the same spot. Now you're ready to sight in where that point of impact is, and then you're ready to go hunting. Because again, what you're trying to make sure is that your arrow is having the most perfect arrow flight that you can possibly have, to make sure you've got penetration, because hunting is a very realistic thing. It's not a target that's sitting there all day. An animal can make a step at the last second and change where that arrow makes impact, and then you're into bone and stuff. You want to make sure you've got the best chance of punching through that bone. Another thing that I want to just touch on real quick is I think just the amount of prep and practice work. I'll tell you right now, if you're an inexperienced archer and you're getting ready to go hunting, the last thing you want to do is get into this situation too early, because I've had a lot of experience with shooting moose from long ranges with a high-powered rifle. It's like they step out in the bog. As soon as they're within a couple hundred yards, they're in range, and you can shoot them, and it's over with. But when you try to match that with the adrenaline of of an animal that's 30 yards in front of you, your mind goes blank. You've got to put in enough shots, and I mean thousands of shots, so that it is a muscle reflex when you get in that moment where the adrenaline is there and you're forgetting which pin you got to use and stuff like that, or which way your trigger goes.
I can tell you to this day, when you get within 40 yards of a moose, the adrenaline rush that goes through you is, you're going to make mistakes. I mean, we all do. We all make bad shots, but the practice he's talking about it, and just that experience of getting close to the animals, is something that you've got to put some work into to do it right. And one of my suggestions would be, rather than just taking a ball and jumping into a 40-yard shot, is if you're a rifle hunter, put the work in and get within 40 yards with your rifle and try and make those shots. And you'll see just how hard it is. And at least by doing that, you'll have some idea of what to expect when you're there with your bow.
Yep. And so on that point, the funny anecdote I got is like, so there's a lot of steps with, comes to executing a good shot, and this is why it's good to come get some guidance from us on how to anchor on the bowstring and where your hands need to be. Your nose should be touching the string. Like, there's a bunch of steps, like how your feet should be placed so you don't twist your hips when you release the shot, especially when you're on uneven ground hunting. The angle of the shot matters. There's just so many factors that you need to keep straight. There's a checklist of things that you need to anchor right, look at the level in your sight, anchor correctly, look through the peep sight, select the right pin, all these little steps, and you miss one, and it's gonna mean the success or failure of your hunt. And I told a friend of mine this, who was getting ready for his first bow hunt. He got in that situation. He was in tree stand by himself without me to guide him through and talk him through the process. And he said, I didn't understand what you were talking about until I actually was in the situation, because he was actually so struck by adrenaline he couldn't stand up. It took him like 5-10 minutes to just get his legs to work, because this is his first chance at big game, and it's a bear. And he actually was like, then when he finally got his legs for, he got up and he looked at his trigger on his wrist, and he was actually couldn't remember if the trigger had to go facing right or left, and he actually hooked up to his D-loop incorrectly. He had his trigger facing inward towards him, and when he pulled back, he hit his trigger halfway through the draw cycle and fired the arrow 6 feet over the bear's back.
This is an experienced archer.
Yeah, well, no, he had practice.
But he was a well-practiced archer, but shooting his ball, but he hadn't hunted.
Like whenever we got a moment too, I'd like to talk a little bit about bow selection to make sure people make a good, educated purchase. If you are going to shop somewhere else, you're seeing this like wherever you are, and you're about to walk into a bow shop. Like, I've got some really great advice for people that are looking to buy an entry level economy bow package.
So what we'll probably do there is we'll probably cut this up into 2 videos. That might be a good way to do this, just so people don't lose interest. We'll talk about the tuning. I don't know how much he has left to say, but then we'll do a little short video here, so stay tuned to the channel, and I'll put that one up in the very near future about what you should look for when you're buying a bow.
Yeah, definitely, and we gotta emphasize, don't buy online just through something where you're never gonna get a chance to talk to someone. It's very easy to accidentally select wrong arrows that are actually not compatible with the bow. If you buy a bow that's rated for like a 20-pound youth bow or something like that, and it's like going back to the arrow spawn, if you get an arrow that's way too weak because it's made for a kid's 20-pound bow, and you put it on a 70-pound compound bow not knowing the difference, it can explode.
You can actually hurt yourself by doing that. Yeah, so
it's very dangerous. It's something that I've been so far, people have been very lucky. I've had a couple occasions where people had that exact situation. They bought incompatible gear, and luckily they brought it to me to set it up for them, and I caught it before they injured themselves.
Since 2000, I think I shot my first whitetail, but and I did that with an over-the-counter bow. I got it for Christmas. My parents bought it for me, and I was lucky enough that I managed to shoot a couple of animals with it. I actually got tangled up with Matt McDonald, I believe his name was. He opened a shop in CBS there a few years ago. He's from Nova Scotia. And he gave me a whole bunch of pointers about bow selection and arrow selection. Made a huge difference in my shooting. And of course he set the ball for me. So I mean, after being down that road, just save yourself the grief and go to a Bowtech, wherever it is, and get your stuff set up and purchase the right gear. In the long run, it's going to save you some money.
Oh, and hopefully save that heartache of a lost animal or wounded animal or a long trek.
Cool. All right. So anything else you got to say about tuning? I know there's a whole lot of information there. Some of the videos, some of the stuff he was talking about, like the whack back tuning and stuff, I'll try and find a couple of links there I can put in the description, and I'll include those.
Would have to learn the limitations of a bow or crossbow, not only for the clean harvest, but also for the safety of the user. Like, people don't know this. You can't just pick a compound bow up without an arrow on it and shoot it without an arrow on. People think you can just pull it back and let it go. That's what's called a dry firing, and that will catastrophically destroy your bow. And that's your best case scenario. That's just a bow that's being damaged. It can very easily take your eye or someone else's eye, anybody that's close to you, like from the parts that go flying off the bow. Because without the arrow that receive the energy released by the limbs and the string, it goes back through the bow, and the bow is catastrophically destroyed, and it can definitely result in some major injuries. So one really important accessory that a lot of you probably have, this is your arrow rest I bet a lot of you have on your ready to shoot package. This is what's known as a whisker biscuit. So we're going to talk about the difference of a whisker biscuit and a drop away arrow rest and the implications and how much easier it is to do your paper tuning, all your intricate tuning with a good drop away style rest. So this is your standard Whisker Biscuit arrow rest that comes on almost every single ready to shoot package, or something that's very similar to this. So there's a lot of limitations with this type of rest. You can do like get your tuning done with it, but it's just more of a headache. And it's, to me, it's the most important accessory that you upgrade on your bow ASAP, long before you go hunting, so you can get your tuning done, because this is going to affect how your arrow flies and how straight it flies and how easy it is to make adjustments to get your arrow flying straight if it's not already flying straight. So this, and there's no more important accessory on your bow than your rest, so get rid of this as soon as you can and upgrade to a drop away rest. So with this particular rest, which again is more common, there is no vertical adjustment, no up and down adjustment. There's just a horizontal left and right. So if you did need to make some fine tuning adjustments up and down, the only option you have is to move the D loop on your string. So that makes it, you know, a 1/16 of an inch adjustment when your D loop is clamped on there is kind of hard to achieve, and a 1/16 of an inch adjustment on this can mean a lot in how it flies through the paper and how it tunes up. There's a lot of factors in this in a Whisker Biscuit and getting the arrow to fly straight. Like, you know, you typically with paper tuning, if you see a certain left tear, right tear, high tear, low tear, there are indications of which way you need to move your arrow rest to correct it. With a Whisker Biscuit, the fact that you're actually shooting through the bristles and they're having an influence on what your arrow is doing as it leaves, you can change that. The paper might say you need to go left, but you actually need to make a slight adjustment to the right. And it's such a headache with these that, like, we'll guide you through it. I tell people I will try to tune it out in a couple, but if I can't do it within 6-7 shots, the rest is, I'll give you guidance and I'll show you how to do it and some resources, and you're going to have to go and shoot, and because it could take a lot of shots to get tuned up with this type of arrow rest, and I can't be in my shop shooting 70-pound bows all day trying to tune this inferior piece of equipment, right? Even if you've got a vertical adjustment arrow Whisker Biscuit, it's still a headache to do it and get the precise adjustments you need. So the alternative style is a drop away rest. Okay, so this is what represents a drop away style rest. The way this one works is that this cable here is built into the rest itself, and this goes tethered into one of your bowstring cables, and as you pull the bow back, it draws tension and it cocks it like so, and when you release the shot and it goes back the other way, it drops out of the way entirely. So by doing this, your arrow flies uninterrupted. It's not hindered. It flies faster, and you get a truer read through the paper on what your arrow is doing. So it's like with this type of rest, which has a left and right and a vertical adjustment, it will fly through. You'll be able to trust what the paper is showing you and make some adjustments to your arrow rest to clean up the shot through the paper. If you still can't clean up the shot through the paper, you've got something going on, whether it's some timing issues in your cams, or the arrow itself is not correctly spun. If you're just making adjustments and it's not getting no better, even though you know you're going the right way based on videos and anything else you've looked at, then you've probably got something else going on that you need to go see a pro shop about. Okay, so this is a drop away rest. It's like anything, sky's the limit. You can spend a lot of money on an arrow rest. These QAD HDX that we sell are they're recently gone up in price. They're $215. You can easily drop a couple, like $400 or $500 on a drop away rest. These QAD HDX arrow rests that we sell are bulletproof. They're a tried and true design that's been around for a long time. You don't really need to upgrade. The biggest thing you get with a higher amount is micro adjustability, but if you just make some very minor adjustments sliding the rest, you can achieve the same kind of tuning. So that's one advantage. Okay,
so we're going to wrap up the video now on the tuning part, and then we're going to just do another quick one on selecting a ball. But I did want to ask you, so you talked about all the tuning, all the technical stuff. There's a lot to it. The reason I'm here is because I don't know any of it. I could manage to change a string in the field, which I probably shouldn't even be doing, but aside from that, so when people are looking at getting their bow tuned, are these tunings specific to each person? Could I pick up, say, your bow, you get your bow tuned for you, we're the same size ballpark, I buy the bow online, the bow is apparently already tuned and ready to go. Can I pick up your bow and use it?
Okay, that's a really good question actually. Yeah, so basically, you like any bow is usually custom fit to the individual archer. Like if you're really close in spec and height and arm span and stuff like that, you can get away with, you know, I guess shooting a few shots and having some marginal amount of accuracy. But if you're looking to get like the most out of your bow pack and stuff like that, you are better having a tailored fit to your own specs and making sure it fits, because even like a difference in our jaw structure or facial structure is going to impact where your peep sight is going to be in your string, which is essentially your rear sight in your string, right? Where that's going to be might be slightly different if one archer tilts their head in or keeps their head perfectly straight like they should, or if there's just a difference in the difference between my nose and my eyes kind of thing, right? So in a nutshell, yeah, you want to have it tailor fit and tuned to you, and especially though in the tuning aspect, it's really good to come see us, because sometimes it's not about the actual bow or the equipment, it's about something to do with your form. I guess in a quick recap, just like don't leave your prep for the last couple weeks of the season, even if you've got a bow and you've been shooting for a while. It's always good to get it out and make sure your tuning is done and make sure that everything, especially when we watch this, I want everybody at home to quickly go home and to try their bows by doing this paper tune test and see if you've got and see how you're shooting through paper.
We're going to finish up. I'm going to say that practice after you get your bow tuned by a professional, and by practice you've got to consider where you're going to be shooting, what environment you're going to be shooting in, because John referred earlier to like proper feet placement and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to take it one step further and just say that not all shots in the field are going to be the perfect setup.
Yep.
So if you're planning on shooting from a sitting position in a bear stand, practice from a sitting position in a bear stand.
Yep.
I shot a fallow deer in Hungary a couple of years ago. I was actually sitting on my butt with my feet bent in front of me, but I had practiced that shot before because I knew the situation I was going to be in. So practice how you're going to shoot after your bow is tuned. Thanks for watching this little segment on tuning here. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the notifications, and check out Aero Dictions here in Shoal Harbour. Link is up here again and in the description. Thanks John for everything.
Thank you.
And the next video will be posted shortly about what to look for when you're buying a bow.